All right. um, yeah, I think I finally got the stream going right. We'll wait just a minute and see if people can catch up. There's one. Good. Hello, public. All right, there we go. Guess we got reconnected. Thanks, food porn. Yeah, just connectivity. It can get sketchy here in the mountains. Hi, Howard. AV is good. Thank you, Jim. Yeah, I tried to connect with my cell phone, but it just wasn't happening. And my dad's DSL, it might be a little choppy video wise. I think the audio should be good, but we'll chill here for a minute and just kind of let people catch up. Sorry about that. Victor Torres. Hi, Victor. Yes, in a proper situation, those totes are great. If you're static, and I've had a lot of questions come in, and I'll be chatting about this a little bit in just a little bit. About weekenders, people that are static all the time that don't move around, and how they should manage their tanks. And so we'll talk about that for just a bit, in just a minute. I'll wait just a few minutes because it takes time for the churn. Pardon me, Timothy. Welcome back. So I hope everybody had a great Fourth. You're welcome, Victor. Um, I was starting to answer your question. I don't think I really answered it totally. I'm a little distracted because I keep getting this warning here. That the stream rate's a little low, and it is what it is, I guess. I'll just try not to move very much. How's that? Okay, so Victor, yeah, I think they're great in the proper situation. If you're static and you need to haul your waste, then that's great. I've been places where been spending lots of, like a month where I didn't have hookups, and it sure would have been handy to have one. I see a lot of Class A's running around with them attached to the ladder. It's funny what you do see attached to Class A ladders. I get a joke or a kick out of it. Ladders attached to ladders, that's probably my favorite. And then, of course, those holding tanks, those portable totes for dumping your gray and your black tanks. So, anyway, let's see. AV is good. Thanks, Jim. Okay. Oh, great, Jim. Yeah. Well, we're still waiting for some folks to come in. I did. My dad's doing well. For those of you that have been following along, I'm out here in Arkansas, which I'm spoiled because I have gigabit Ethernet internet at my house in Idaho. So, that's what it is. But let's see here if I can do this real quick and not completely crash everything. Um, okay. And then let's play this up here. I'm going to do this. Let's see. I want to. Um, all right. Let's see. That's up here. I don't have. All right. So it looks like you can see it. Let me close that. Well, that's interesting. All right. Never mind. I was going to show you a picture of me and my dad, but it doesn't look like that's going to work tonight. Um, I ended up actually having to get a new laptop. My other laptop finally turned up its toes and said, I've had enough. So let me go back to here. And so I'm still kind of getting things tuned up here so that they work correctly. Okay, a few more people are starting to get back in. Yeah, sorry about that glitch earlier. Um, That's a good point, Jim. Jim Bertrand says it's also interesting to see what has bottomed out at the bottom of ladders. Yeah. Um, Robert Black, 1911, welcome. Great to have you in the chat tonight. Um, Tunnel effect, yeah, I'll figure it out. Of course, after the stream, right? I don't want to waste your time and mine trying to sort that out. Oh, CNS, welcome. Great to have you in. Um, the CNS Schoolie Project just posted another video around getting rid of wheel wells in his bus. It's a pretty good video. You might want to check his channel out. Tim from Winder, Georgia. Hello, Tim. Great to have you here. No, well, I think a Raspberry Pi might have worked, but I don't know about running like the software and everything to do the live stream stuff on it. I mean, the 2 weeks ago I did it on my phone and it seemed like it was okay. But anyway, um, I am a big fan of HP, David. David Madison asked what kind of laptop did I get. I got a 15-inch HP with the Intel Core i5 because I edit video on this, so I kind of went to a little bit of a higher end processor. It's got a half a gig, 500 megabyte SSD drive. I could have got an M2, the super fast NVRAM solid state drives, but that was another $200, and this isn't my primary machine, so I think I'll be fine. Sorry about the dog there. Let's see. So, and it's working really good. Set right up. It's been easy to run. Tim asks, I have to have part of my roof on my RV replaced this weekend. Had to take it to a dealer. Yeah, um, that's a drag, but I know what you're going through. I did my own roof in 2018. Yes, 2018. Yeah, I did my own roof in 2018 because I mine was leaking and I had several soft spots and yeah, it was in rough shape. Oh, Jeff Ripplinger from Denver. Yeah, hi Jeff. Great to have you in the stream. I lived in Denver for 3 years. I lived at 17th and Glenarm. So if you know where the Hard Rock is in downtown, I was a block up from that on 17th Street. I loved living in downtown Denver. That place was great. There was always something going on. Every weekend there was something. Always bands, and the Hard Rock would bring in bands and stuff, and I could hear them from my apartment. So, and I used to love to go over to the Paramount Theater, which is right there, and catch shows, music and comedy. I saw a number of comedians there, Bill Maher, and I saw Buddy Guy there, and yeah, it was fun living in Denver. I did like it. Brian Max asks, "What do I think of Rhino Echo coating the roof on motorhomes? I've seen some videos on the process, and it looks like the way to go." Yeah, I don't have any firsthand experience with that, and I always tend to lean on firsthand experience or experience from folks that have used a product that I've actually seen used. And for me, the Henry Tropicool and the Henry Bright Tech, which are basically the same thing. In fact, CNS Schoolie, you did remind me, you did Tropicool, I think, on your bus, didn't you guys? Anyway, they have a great video on it. I don't have a video on it, but you could go watch CNS Schoolie's video, and doing an RV isn't going to be much different than doing a school bus. But he used Henry's, and it's good stuff. So I don't have any firsthand experience with Rhino Echo, but uh, I think they're all about sixes. They're probably all going to last between 6 and 10 years before you have to recoat. Yeah, I keep waiting to see your father-in-law's bus build. Oh, thanks, Tom and Sandy Elliott. I appreciate that very much. I'm happy to share my experience with you, and getting your feedback is wonderful. I appreciate that. Yeah, don't worry about that. CNS Schoolie says, hi, sorry, I've been here in a few weeks building two buses. He had mentioned in a video earlier that he posted, oh, it's probably, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 videos back, that his father-in-law is who got them into the bus scene anyway, and he was bringing a bus to his house to work on. So I imagine you are busy. Yeah, thanks, Jim. Appreciate those thumbs up if you like what you're seeing. Of course, don't forget you can drop your question over in the chat window. I'm happy to answer your questions. Any questions around RVing. If I don't know the answer, I'll go look it up. If you'd like to support me on my Amazon store, there's a link in the description for this video, and that's also greatly appreciated. And remember, as an Amazon affiliate, I get a small commission, but you pay the exact same price. And then, of course, over on my website, there's lots of companion articles associated with some of the videos I do, and then some are standalone at trboland.com. And you're visiting me over there is also really helpful. All right, back away from the commercial and back to the questions. Food Porn Chef asks, can you just take it to the manufacturer to get fixed, or they have give you permission? I think that question might be for Brian or Tom. Oh, John's in from Michigan. Great to see you in, John. Thanks for joining us tonight. Tim mentions they need to stop doing the rubber roof on these camper trailers. Yeah, um, some RVs have fiberglass, and they're just as prone to having leaks as anything else. I don't know. I don't. I know some people with Airstreams. They seem to be pretty watertight. I think Airstream does a good job around building their rigs. But yeah, I think um, that yeah, well, and also you got a lot of consolidation going on, and I follow the Newmar forums because I have a Newmar Dutch Star, and Newmar got bought by Winnebago, and of course all the diehard Newmar owners went ape crap up over it, right? We're all upset, and it sounds like maybe their customer service maybe has come off a little bit over what Newmar had, at least from what I hear in the forums. So. Uh, Okay, to tape off and use the seam sealer. Okay, that's good. That's good to know, CNS. Oh, 90 degrees in Sandusky. Wow, that's warm. It was 93 here today and about 60% humidity. And right now it's 93 in Idaho, where I live. Building for Harold. Yeah, okay. He said, CNS Schooley says, uh, actually, he's running circles around me and he's 75. Well, yeah, don't underestimate the power of old guys. When they get something on their mind, they like to get it done. Gracie Seeking Adventures, hello from Portland. It's finally cooled off up there for you, I'm sure. Okay, so if you have a question, be sure and drop it over in the chat window, and also be sure and check in and let us know where you're watching from. But I wanted to talk about one thing that has come up quite a bit recently, and that's about weekenders or rigs that stay static, that don't move. And I get this question, oh, probably 4 or 5 times a month, and they always start, well, I can't drive around and do the road flush. And the road flush is the one of the best ways to maintain your tank is by doing the road flush. So you're putting the water and the borax and your soap or your detergent, whatever it is, in, and you're driving to your next destination, which allows that water to slosh around and it really scrubs the tank out. Well, you can't really do that with a weekender that sits parked permanently. Well, what you need to do then is just soak them. And what I've been telling people to do, and I've got some feedback that it's is working, is if it's a weekender and you have septic you could dump on your site, dump your tanks before you leave, fill them full of fresh water, add your borax, 1 cup, add a cup of Dawn dish soap, and leave it for the week. And then when you come back that following Friday or whenever you come back to your weekender, pull that handle, let that drain out, start it with 2 more gallons of water and some borax and Dawn, but probably just borax. But eventually, if you do that for 2 or 3 weeks, that soaking is so critical to getting all that crud softened up, and so that will allow it to wash away. So just soak those tanks. That's good for anybody, especially if you have tanks or your tank level indicators aren't working properly. A good way to get ahead of that is to soak. So just soak it, especially if you park it at home. Soak it for the week if you're home for the week, and then you're going to go camping that weekend. Leave 20 minutes early, run by the dump station in town, pull that tank, dump it, and then go camping. But yeah, if you can soak them, you're going to get those sensors working pretty fast. We had a lot of traffic over here that I was missing. Oh, the Hope Bus. Thank you very much for your kindness on the super chat. Those are always greatly appreciated, and I can't say hi enough, or can't say thank you enough. And Natura Mod, hi. Okay, uh, ask your question. Uh, Nur Nurtu. Gosh, I'm probably brutalizing your name, but go ahead and ask your question. Aaron Jameson. Hey, we'll catch up with you in just a second. Watching from Niagara on Lake Ontario. That is cool. Yeah, it looks a little choppy over on my monitor. I can see the video's a little choppy, so I apologize for that. Hopefully, I'll be able to get ahead of that one of these days soon. Oh, it's 89. Okay, well, that's still kind of warm for Portland, but better than 116. Gary Boyd's in. Hello, Gary. And it's 82 there on the west coast of Canada. For all my west coast friends, all of those people out there in the dry west, we had 2 inches of rain here last week in one day. That's probably what flooded Zion out. If you've been watching the news, Zion National Park got beat up. Flash floods go through there. And when those flash floods go through the Utah desert, you don't want to be near one of those washes because the mud's going to be 3 feet deep. And it's what it looked like it was in Zion. There in, what is that, hurricane? Is that hurricane right there, Zion? Okay, so that was kind of all I had for tonight. I really didn't have a lot of content prepared. I've been busy doing other stuff. Tim, my dad, is doing fine. Um, Looks like he'll probably be a couple more weeks at the rehab hospital, but he's getting himself. My dad broke his hip, for those of you that may be coming into the story late. My dad broke his hip 3 weeks ago Saturday, and so he had surgery, and um, he's been at the rehab hospital now for this will be starting his third week. Yeah, so starting his third week, and or maybe, yeah, starting his third week. And he's able to get himself up and down. He still needs a little bit of help moving, getting up. But yeah, he's 100% better. And I talked to physical therapy people today, and they were really encouraged. Says he's really good to work with, and the nurses like him a lot. He's pretty trouble free. Like he's very low maintenance. So, but thanks for asking. Robert Black reports they had 3.11 inches in a few hours. Was glad to get it as it filled up my pond. Yeah, I know in where I used to live. Well, it's a long story, but I used to live over in central Idaho between Twin Falls and Sun Valley, and I had water irrigation rights on my 10 acres that I had over there, and I had a pond. And the earliest I can remember him turning the water off was August 15th, which would usually give the farmers 2 cuttings of alfalfa. There's a lot of dairy in that area. And they cut the water off there June 1st. So they're hurting out there in the West for water. Aaron, he seems to be okay. Aaron asked how my brother's taking it, and he seems to be fine. Uh, yeah, he seems to be okay. I think he probably thinks I'm kind of an asshole because he's on the spectrum, and so I'm kind of making him do stuff that he doesn't like to do, like shower regularly and stuff like that. But we're getting along, and he's doing fine. J Range 1227 says all stick built RVs poor quality and prone to leaking. Been told to look into fiberglass, but the price is crazy compared to stick built. Yeah. Um, it depends on the manufacturer, I think. But yeah, if you think about it, stick built RVs, when you're going down the road, I always call it like a rolling earthquake. And especially on travel trailers, you get a lot of racking going on. Okay, so what racking is that as you're going down the road or you hit a bump or something like that, and this wheel drops. Well, the frame racks like this. It doesn't turn like this. The frame can actually rack. And in fact, I had my RV towed at Camp Verde in 2018, coming on to winter. I blew a hydraulic hose and I had to be towed into the shop. And I got racked on that. And in fact, in the bathroom, the wall separated from the outer wall. The bathroom back wall separated. So yeah, that was a bit of a drag. But when those frames get racked, stuff starts to move, and yeah, leaks appear. Fiberglass is so much more structurally stable. Got to think about the way framing is put together. It's screwed or it's stapled or it's nailed. Fiberglass, it's one continuous piece. There's very few connection points in it that have the opportunity to come loose and rack. So that's why the fiberglass rigs work a lot better. Steel stud framed rigs are also very stable. Like my Newmar, I'm going to brag about my Newmar again, but it uses steel stud or metal studs. Okay, and then of course it has fiberglass skin on it, so that's really super rigid. And even though it got racked, and in fact there's a couple spots in the body where I could see on the passenger side, which was the side that got racked, you could see that the seam separations had changed in two spots that I noticed. But yeah, so they get racked, and like those metal panels and the stuff they put them together with will shift. And if they've used lower quality sealants, those sealants will tear, and you got your leak. So yeah, you you know it's unfortunate, the old adage. I hate to use it, but you get what you pay for. Oh, John says, hope he doesn't have any farmers around him. Gracie says, as a nurse for 44 years, I love low maintenance patients. Yeah, I think that, yeah, I don't think he's on the buzzer much. And he's getting himself around. I had him setting up and sitting on the edge of the bed today, and he was able to transfer from his wheelchair to the bed with very little assistance. So we're looking good. I'm encouraged. I'm going to scan back here and just make sure that I didn't miss anything. Tim has a question about tires. Okay, good question. And this is going to be a little controversial, but take it for what it is. This came from, I took a 3 day class. Was it two? It might have been 2 days. Yeah, it was a 2 day class called Camp Freightliner at the Newmar Owners International Caravan Meeting, whatever you want to call it, convention. What do they call it? But in fact, it's going on right now. The pre meet's going on at Wytheville, Virginia, which I've actually stayed at the camp they're at right now in the past myself. But so I went to this class for 2 days, and the guy that did the training for us was the lead of training for all of Freightliner. So he was responsible for every um, bit of training that went on across the entire Freightliner line for XC LC chassis. So for rolling motorhome chassis, he was the lead guy for every training that went on. So this guy knew his stuff. In fact, it was really cool because when you signed up for it, you had to give them the serial number of your rig. And in Freightliner world, you give them the last six. And then what he did was is he went and looked up that chassis. And in this book they give you was a 2.5 inch 3 ring binder that was stuffed full. There was the exact specific information for your chassis, how it came from the factory. So what tires, what everything, right? So it was super handy. and he had some strong opinions about tires, and so do I. I'm going to answer your last question first. Yes, you should cover them if you're staying in a spot for a fair amount of time or it's in storage. Those tire covers are cheap. I think I spent about $60 for a set of four for my RV. So they're definitely worth the investment. Remember, you never want to run your tires more than 6 years. But yeah, and you won't get 6 years if you're not covering those tires and it's sitting out in storage. They'll get weather checked and start to look pretty bad. The second thing he said is that don't park on plywood and or concrete because those materials can actually wick the compounds out of the tire and cause them to get weak in a certain spot. He said best practice was asphalt because asphalt is oily, and so it had a less of a probability of wicking those compounds out of the tire, and or grass would be just fine because there's nothing there on the grass to wick the compounds out. Or those plastic blocks, those hard plastic blocks like leveling blocks. They look like Legos for happy campers. But to park on those is perfectly good too. Um, the second thing is if you have a Class A or a Class C that you have leveling jacks on, you want to jack that rig up when it's in storage, just to where the weight's off the tires. You still want the tires touching the ground, but you want it jacked up and sitting on the jacks with the weight off the tires as much as possible. Because if you leave it in storage, like over winter, and you go back to get it, it's going to have flat spots on the tires if you're not jacked up and sitting. Just, the tire's touching, but it's not carrying the whole weight of the rig. Um, you'll have flat spots. And in fact, when I first got my rig out of storage, I'd had it in storage in 16, excuse me, for about 6 months. And when I first got it out, it had settled. It was sitting in gravel, which is also another material that's fine to park on. Um, but it sunk in a little bit, and so the tires were not unloaded with weight as much as I would have liked. And so I ended up with flat spots on my tires. It took about 100 miles to wear them out, to get them out. So I hope that helps, Tim. Thanks for such a great question. Example of brands that are stick built. Okay, anything from Jayco, anything from Montana. Well, not most of the things from Montana, but they're also fiberglass skinned. Um, really, any of the travel trailers that are the lower ends, the Mallards, all of those things from Thor. Thor has a number of brands, but all of those are going to be stick framed. If it has a fiberglass skin on it, then it's more likely to be a different type of framing or actually have integral fiberglass framing. Like the R pods are fiberglass, and I think they're all fiberglass, and they're really good rigs. I've been seeing them and been in one, and they make amazing rigs. So anything that has like the metal siding on it is probably going to be stick framed. So I would say that probably 90%, 85, 90% of all RVs are stick framed. Now that might change, but lumber prices have come down. But yeah, anyway, hope that helps. I haven't done anything with the truck camper. I haven't bought one yet. I just got a pickup and got it running. And I have not sold Rusty. I'm actually toying with the idea of keeping him. We'll see. Thanks for getting my back there, Aaron, and reminding people to give me the thumbs up. Appreciate that. Oh, Roberts responded to John about no farmers, just ranchers. Water drains through. Okay. Okay, you're very welcome, J Range. Rally, thank you, Aaron. Oh, and he's got a video up there for around tire covers. Yeah. I think I bought well, I could probably go look real quick. No, Robert, no. No, stick frame is fine. Um, you're not gonna. I mean, to get into one with metal framing or an all fiberglass, it's about a 30% premium over stick frame. So I'm going to say that a lot of RVs are stick framed. Um, uh, so like this, my Dutch Star when it rolled off the line was a $385,000 RV, and that was back in 2004. That's the equivalent of about 600,000 today. Amazingly, the Dutch Stars still run about 380 starting, and they go up from there. So, but you're getting a much better finish, and again, it's metal framed, and you're also getting a rolling chassis, which adds 150,000 right there. Groovejet, hello. Oh, hey, in the UK, Bramburgh Castle, Northumberland, is a fantastic place. Harrison Ford's filming new Indiana Jones movie now. Castle is my number one favorite place. Ah, cool. I just watched the Temple of Doom just the other day, as a matter of fact. Good point, Gary. Yeah, stick frames are fine. Uh, they can go for a long time. I don't know if a channel I watch um, has a stick framed inexpensive travel trailer with a slide out, and he does a lot of off roading down rough, ragged roads, and his basically kind of fell apart, especially around the hole in the wall where the slide was coming in and out. That because of the racking that was going through, going down these rough dirt roads, and when you're going through, coming off the highway, coming down onto a dirt road, you're oftentimes racking the frame, and that wood moves around, and those nails and staples start to pull loose. So if you run them hard, they're going to fail. But yeah, if you take good care of it, and um, they're good. I mean, geez, I know people that have just recently bought 1990s trailers that were stick framed, and they're just fine. So it just depends on how you use it. Robert Black says, I just purchased a used 2016 Montana High Country 305 RL. It's really good shape. Is this a good unit? Absolutely. Those Montanas are one of the best rigs on the road. Assuming it's a fifth wheel, I think that High Country is a fifth wheel. Um, the RV park that I winter at in Tucson, or used to winter at, there were three Montanas there. In fact, people just across the road from me, or across we were kind of in a little cul-de-sac area, but they had a Montana, and it was a beautiful rig and very well built. So yeah, Montanas make great rigs. I will mention though that they are really sealed up well. They don't leak a lot of air. And so if you're parking it or storing it in a humid climate, pay attention to the humidity. Get yourself some of those big damp rid containers, or over on my Amazon store, I have a page called Handy Items for RV Owners, and the I buy the and use and swear by these. I want to say AccuDry, something like that, but it's a little round plastic widget. You can hang them anywhere. The nice thing about them is to recharge them. They have a plug, and you just plug them into the wall, and if it's 6 to 8 hours later, they're back to where they'll suck up moisture. And so definitely pay attention to moisture. In fact, that goes for anybody who stores their rig in a wet climate, in a damp climate. You really need to pay attention to moisture when they're in storage, because mold and mildew can get in there and just destroy a rig. I know I was talking to some folks over on my website who had a real mold problem, and in fact, that was in Montana. But they were up in NorCal, up there, and where they get 100 inches of rain a year, and yeah, they were having some real mold problems, and they couldn't figure out where it was coming from. Okay, I don't recognize those lyrics. I do recognize them, but I don't. Oh, Jim Bertrand asks, "What's rolling chassis mean?" Motorized self-propelled chassis that a rig sits on, gas or diesel. It doesn't have to have air brakes or anything like that. No air suspension. So Class C's, Class B's technically are a rolling chassis, except the body is usually integrated from the factory on that chassis. So like transit vans, those sorts of things. But even school buses, um, from the cab down, that's a rolling chassis that comes out of the factory at Freightliner or Spartan or whoever, just like RVs. In fact, school bus chassis are very similar to RV chassis, very much similar. CrewJet says there's a trend happening now, trading. Yeah, I've heard about this. A guy started with, say, a cheap TV, and he has traded up into a motorhome worth 3 grand, 3,000 pounds, which is about 5 grand US. He's aiming to get to trade up to a Lamborghini. It's possible. Well, yeah, I suppose. I think there was a show on TV about that about 10 years ago. I don't watch a lot of TV, but I seem to remember seeing like a commercial or a promo about that. How we doing on time? Oh, we're doing great. Lola asked me, have I ever seen the Paul Bunyan in Tucson? If I think I know what you're talking about, but I think that's called, what was the name of that place? It's a bar. I'll think of it in a minute. But yeah, I used to hang out all over Tucson. But that's a Paul Bunyan? Is there a Paul Bunyan? I'm thinking of the bar that's downtown that's got the big tiki head outside, out front. I mean, big, 30 feet high. Groovejet. I've always thought how it's a shame that great guys like myself are so knowledgeable and a proper package. Why can't we get all your qualities at an early age? Just imagine chaos. Yeah. I had to learn to be mellow because when I first started managing people 30 years ago, I was a real jerk. And I learned early. I had a really good boss that took me aside and says, that's not how you manage people. And I learned a hell of a lot from that guy. And then, yeah, so I have people that I hired back when I was doing IT that are taking their 20-year anniversaries with the company, and just solid, solid people still there. Jim is asking about my battle boards. I have four 100 amp hour 12-volt battle boards for my RV, and I took them out, took them inside. I didn't bother to trickle charge them or anything like that. I checked the voltage on them a couple times. They were never below 13.4 volts, so I didn't bother trickle charging them or anything. I just let them set in the basement. Oh, Willy Wonka. Um, Gary Boyd's asking, have I talked to Zach and Tiff lately? That's the Rolling Vistas kids. Uh, on Instagram, we've exchanged a few messages. But yeah, they're out somewhere in the Northwest, Pacific Northwest, somewhere down in Washington, I think. At least that's what I'm seeing from the pictures. They spent a lot of time up on the northwest end of the Great Salt Lake. Very beautiful country down there, around Wendover and down in that area in northwest Utah, northwest of the Great Salt Lake. Gary says he's seen the Paul Bunyan and Babe on Highway 101 in California. I have too. I've seen those. R. Carbonaro. What do I think of the Winnebago Navion 24? I think they're really cool. That's um, that thing. I really like that concept of those smaller rigs like that. That's sort of a super B almost, not quite a C, and not well. Yeah, I think it's 24 foot, so that's a pretty good size super B, and I like the looks of them. I think they're probably hella expensive though. Okay, Dave, are you just getting in or are you leaving with the power being out? I'd understand the power thing for sure. Exactly. Lola J says she visited Tucson years ago. It was an easy jaunt to Nogales. No gracias, no gracias, no gracias. You say that 12 billion times in Nogales. And yeah, in fact, it was probably 4 years ago. I went over to Nogales and it snowed on us the day we were there in Nogales. Yeah, Tucson has the Tucson Mountain Park, and there's tons of mountains there. It's 10 times better than Phoenix, in my humble opinion. Okay, so any more questions of an RV related nature? I'm happy to answer those. Drop a comment over there. Let us know where you're watching from. Sorry about the double take on the stream tonight. That's the beauty of internet. I can see it's still a little jumpy video wise. Apologize for that. All right, well, we might be able to wrap this one up a little earlier. Okay, Michigan Dave says, "Oh, I've lost power 5 times in the last 3 days. What's going on up there?" Okay, Groovjet asks, briefly, how do you make both leisure battery and vehicle battery work good for you, mainly relating to always having enough power and not like me, run battery dead so motorhome doesn't start? The first thing you should do is get yourself a battery monitoring system of some sort. Okay, and what a battery monitoring system is going to do is it's going to keep track of how much power you've used out of those batteries. You can set up an alert on it so it'll alarm you. It'll beep or buzz or scream at you when your batteries are getting low. And so that would be the first thing I would do. And then the next thing is, well, once you get a battery monitoring system where you can monitor how much power you're using, you may want to look for maybe a little bit more power efficient equipment, changing over to things like a 12-volt TV from a 110 or a 220, depending upon where you're at, is a good way to save power because as you go through that inverter, you're losing power. Most inverters in RVs at best might be 90% efficient. So what that means is you're only getting 90% of the power from the batteries turned into 110 voltage and provided to you at an outlet. So there's a huge cost there associated with that. But I think a battery monitoring system would be very valuable and it will teach you how much power you're using and also warn you before you run your batteries flat. And you can get a decent battery monitor for about 200 bucks. So they're not really expensive. Yes, great restaurants in Tucson. Okay, R Carbonaro. Cell booster or internet booster? That is a great question. For me personally, cell booster. Campgrounds, the dirty little secret is everybody else is using the same amount of internet you are. First thing. Oftentimes they block streaming, period. Okay? They have limited amount of bandwidth that they're going to let you use. And when you get to a certain point, they're going to cut you off. Now that's most campgrounds. Okay? So you can poach Wi-Fi from Starbucks or McDonald's or someplace like that. But where are you going to need Wi-Fi the most? You're probably going to want it when you're at your campground or if you're out boondocking. So for me, cell phone, cell booster. And I would recommend the WeBoost 4G-X RV cell phone booster, depending upon your rig. They also have like the trucker's cell phone booster, and they're not cheap. And there are some inexpensive ones out there that I understand work pretty good. But I have a long history with Wilson Electronics. I used their commercial cell phone boosters in buildings way back, in the day before good cell phone signal was ubiquitous everywhere. Well, it's not, but it is. You know what I mean? I used to install WeBoost or the Wilson Electronics, which is WeBoost, WE Wilson Electronics. Um, their commercial gear for cell phone for boosting cell phone signals in like buildings, where I would have 50 or 100 employees that needed cell phone service, and we just we're on the fringe. It was sketchy for AT&T, or Verizon was sketchy. So yeah, I would go cell phone booster before I went internet Wi-Fi booster. Oh, G- Gayton from Canada got in. He had a question. It's 3 or 4 weeks ago that he was in, and we helped him. And it looks like he's got, I think it was a leaking vacuum breaker, something like that. I see a comment down there. I'll get to you in just a minute. Lola J, I think it might have been. Okay, Michigan Dave, grid work. Yeah. High heat and humidity. They were freaking out. They were sending, it looks like the stream's getting a little sketchy. They were sending me text messages to save power uh, at home because of the heat. Jim Bertrand asks, what do you think of DC-DC chargers to charge house batteries when driving? Absolutely, yes. My RV has it built in, so it automatically senses when the chassis batteries are at 13.6 volts and switches a relay and sends all the power coming from the alternator, which in my case is almost 300 amps, over to my house batteries. And I'll tell you what, with that much amperage now, I put a larger alternator on my rig. But because most like Class A alternators are going to probably be 180 amps or something like that, but I put a bigger one on just for that purpose, so I could charge my batteries faster driving down the road. So yeah, and it's relatively easy to do. Not much technology required there. There is a little special technology if you're using lithium, but overall that's an easy project. And yeah, I highly recommend it if you could do it to charge your batteries, your house batteries, convenience batteries, as Groove Jet mentioned, uh, that way. Lola asks, do I think they'll make electric RVs? They are now. They're just starting to come out, all electric. I think it's got a ways to go. Mostly, I think it's going to be a range thing. But yeah, they're making, a lot of RVs, I won't say most, but a lot of the higher end Class A's are all electric now. They don't even want to put a propane tank on them. They're electric hot water. They're electric. Well, most of them have hydronic heat, the Oasis systems, where the heat comes up from the floor and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think electric RVs are coming. It's going to be a range thing. But geez, how convenient, right? I mean, you're in an RV, you pull into your campsite, you hook up to your 50 amps, and in 4 hours, your house batteries are charged and your car batteries are charged, and you're ready to roll down the road the next day for another 250 miles. Um, okay, yeah. So GroupJet, that's kind of why I mentioned higher voltages, because I know you were in the UK, and they run 240, 50 hertz. So basically, yeah, you have to take and pump up the voltage. And to do that, you lose a little efficiency going through the transformers and those sorts of things that bring the voltage up. That's a long, that's a good question though, and that might make for a decent video. I gotta make a little note of that here, um, if you don't mind. All right, that way I won't forget. Wow, we got 32 people on. It's coming up on what I would have thought would be the end, but um, I'm happy to keep going. Throw your questions in. I'm catching up here, so let me scroll down. I understand what you're saying there, Group Jet. He says he understands if it's 240 down to 12, but 12 to 240 you don't get. Yeah, well, you're just reversing it, right? You're just taking and reversing that whole cycle and putting, a 50 hertz signal on it. Tom Jones asks, I have Kurt solid state brake controller and my brakes on the trailer grab pretty bad even on the lowest setting. I have read from others that they have had the same problem with this control. Check your ground. Okay? Check your ground. Make sure your ground between the trailer and your tow rig is as good as possible. If you have a spare pin on your trailer connector between your tow rig and your trailer, put a ground in it. But check that ground because that's going to cause it to be sketchy. Also, you might want to have the brakes looked at. Maybe the pads are wore out, or maybe they've been dragging, and so you're running on metal. And so you might, if you haven't already, you might want to pull off a wheel and look at your brakes and see what they look like, and make sure that your brake pads and everything are in good shape. Um, but yeah, I don't have any firsthand experience with the Kurt solid state brake controller. Um, I've had a Roadmaster in the past, and it worked fine. I wasn't too concerned about it. But yeah, check those two things. Check your ground, and then check and make sure your brake pads are in good shape. He's quit. Uh, Gayton says all he has to do is be more gentle on the pedal. Yeah, that stuff can happen. Aaron Jameson, Breaker Breaker 19. Wilson CB radios were the bomb, as the kids say, back in the day. Everybody wanted a Wilson. Tom Jones says he's in Central North Carolina. Excellent. I love North Carolina. I love that whole part of the area. I spent a lot of time up there on the Blue Ridge Parkway, up around Floyd, Meadows of Dan, um, up in that area. I spent a ton of time up there, 6 months, as a matter of fact, and got down to North Carolina, Greensboro a couple times, and yeah, North Carolina is cool. The problem is you get those damn hurricanes down there. Okay, let's see here. Kind of scrolled ahead too far. Just a minute here. Jim, for the cell phone booster, what kind of inside antenna works best? Panel type? Um, it I don't know because I know that people have complained about the candy bar style. Then on the other hand, some people rave about the candy bar style. And then I had the little one that was it set on the base, and I just set it on the table by my right below where the booster was, and it worked pretty good. Um, it depends. Uh, there's a couple things you got to keep in mind is that you want the outside antenna as far away from the inside antenna as possible to stop something called bounding. And what bounding is that the cell phone booster starts to amplify its own signal, and there's circuitry built into the boosters to stop it because it can burn it up. It's like Jimi Hendrix and how he used to do harmonics and um, not harmonics. Come on, help me out. Uh, anyway, feedback. There we go. It's a feedback loop, and it will burn up one of those cell phone boosters. But they've got circuitry in them to stop that. So I think it depends on what type of RV you have. Of course, in my Class A, I didn't have any trouble with mine. Yeah, I didn't. I did say that group chat that it was going to be an early one. Propane generator or diesel? Well, propanes are handy, but keep in mind that propane doesn't make as much energy. Propane fuel, propane, doesn't generate as much energy when it's burned. So you end up burning a little more propane than you would gasoline or diesel. Okay. Really quickly, in propane, you have three methyl ethyl propyl. You have three carbons to break the bonds on, which is what happens when you combust it. In something like gasoline, I think you have about 18, and in diesel you have about 23 or 24. And that's why diesel is usually more efficient. You get better mileage on a diesel carrying the same amount of weight you do in a gasser, because there's more carbon energy there for it to burn. Um, the other thing is that diesel smells, and so if you have to carry cans of diesel around, I have a diesel generator, but I have what they call a single fuel source. So my diesel generator in my RV runs off my fuel tanks, and I have a diesel pusher. So I think it's going to be application specific, but I think propane is probably the better choice if you have like a fifth wheel or travel trailer. Oh, Maryland homes. Okay. Going to start living in my camper full time. How do I prepare for winter in a camper? Buy some sweaters. Where are you camping and how cold will it get? Answer that question for me, please, Maryland, and I'll give you more information. Oh, that's a good point. Lola says, yeah, she agrees with me on the range, and apparently the average RV travels 190 miles to go camping. So maybe range isn't such a big deal. Sorry, I get down to the questions and they scroll by too fast, and then I have to scroll up. Uh, oh, wow, it's after 9. Okay, so we'll start to work towards the end here. Oh, yeah, the first motorized campers were built in 1910. Interesting. They didn't have bathrooms. Yeah. RV'ers used to close the closet, tree, or bush, or a coffee can. I remember camping with my great grandpa, and he had a, what was it, an auto car, and it had a back. He had built this special thing in the back that he could pop out. That was his cooking area. And my great grandpa was a plumber, and he helped do the plumbing in the Yellowstone Lodge, and did a lot of plumbing up in Yellowstone National Park. So he used to have to camp all the time, and he had this thing built out like a camper. It was great. He would take us camping in it. It was interesting and fun. But yeah, he had an auto car from the 30s. This was in the 60s. Brother, Group Jet says his brother bought first Volkswagen transporter van. His friend bought two. Really great finance. Oh wow, he's run out of power 4 times in 3 months. Doing something wrong. Yeah, overranging it. Yeah, that's the thing with those electric vehicles. They just got to get a better battery. Uh, you know. John asks, he just turned the ice maker on in his Dometic M7030 and water showed up on the floor. The outside looks good. Where do I start looking? Is there an access port underneath it or behind? Because there's got to be a shutoff somewhere for that water, and that shutoff is either busted, or the water line feeding it, or the water line on the other side of it, or you got a loose connection. But I would look underneath. I'm not sure how it's mounted, but if there is no access underneath, then I would go behind and I would pop it loose and I would find that shutoff valve. And you probably have a leak in that line somewhere, it sounds like. Thank you, Lola J, for subbing. Gary Boyd says he still has his Cobra. I have a Cobra. I have a Cobra in my RV. Dan Phillips asks, do twin axle travel trailers have brakes on all four hubs? 2020 Puma 20 RLC, 4,300 pounds. Probably not. The heavier rigs might have them on all four. It's easy enough to tell. Just go stick your head underneath it and look under there and see if you see wires going into the hub, into the back of it. And the wiring is usually pretty obvious. But yeah, 4,300 pounds, probably only on one axle. Oh, Aaron's dad was a ham guy. Yeah, Wilson's been in radios forever. I mean, when it comes to two-way ham radio, portable, that kind of stuff, Wilson and Motorola have been in it for, well, since the beginning of time, practically. Basically, Gayton, yeah, it's thermal runaway when the signal repeats. Gary, yeah, it might be. I'm not usually, I got to tell you, if I'm watching a live stream and I want to comment, I come in and I get on my machine on my laptop. I hate trying to comment from my phone. It's a pain. Groovejet says if we didn't support propane, there'd be no King of the Hill. Oh, Hank Hill, yeah, and Bobby. Gary Boyd says both, yeah. And it depends upon the weight, but yeah. And they might put it on both to stop any kind of weird breaking, breakaway, moving action. Thank you, John. See you next week. Jayco 2010 30 footer. A 30 footer, yeah, you'd probably have brakes on all four. 4,300 pounds is not a lot when it comes right down to it. That's just to shy a shade over 2 tons. They may have it on all four. Okay. Well, seemed like we had a pretty good chat tonight. I'll go for one last call for questions. Last call for alcohol. I'll take a quick sip of my tea here. All right. Great. Thanks, everybody. We had a great time. I'm going to be in this situation for at least 2 more weeks. Then I'll be back to my normal broadcast studio and normal quality, hopefully, because it looks like it's getting pretty low. And we'll keep chatting and still have plans to have some guests come on via Zoom. Um, I might twist Aaron's arm and get Aaron to come on Zoom and do some testing with us one of these first weeks when I get back to Idaho and get settled in. But other than that, oh, a couple more final questions here. Lola, does AAA service RVs? Yes. What happens when you break down on the road? You better have roadside assistance or deep pockets. I personally have Good Sam. There's a number of roadside assistance plans, FMCA, Good Sam, two or three others that are worth looking into. I've never been disappointed with Good Sam. They've always sent help out. And so I think roadside assistance, get it. Don't mess around. One blown tire will pay for roadside assistance on a rig, usually. Gary Boyd, that's Tom Jones. I was thinking the same thing, when I saw Tom Jones, because my mom was a huge Tom Jones fan. We grew up with Tom Jones on in the house all the time. That's not illusional. Good night, Groove Jet. Take care out there in the UK. Thanks, Gayton. Great to have you in tonight. Happy to hear you got your problem sorted out. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate your comments and your assistance in the chat and all of that. Thanks, Aaron. Normal service, whatever normal is. You bet, Aaron. We'll get you on for testing and maybe I'll drag you on for the live stream for 5 minutes. Wink, wink. Thanks, Dan Phillips. Great to have you in. Lola J, thank you. Jim Bertrand. Um, See you guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, ring that notification bell so you're notified when new videos go up. Support me over on my Amazon store. That's greatly appreciated. Visit my website, trbolin.com. But until we get together next week, 7 p.m. Mountain Time, peace. You can catch us next week, Mike, every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. But if you have one quick question, I'll hang on. Make her quick. Thanks, Robert. Thanks, Groove Jet. Good night, guys. We'll see you soon.